Welcome, guys and girls, ladies and gents. Today we have something truly special. A great moment in time. The first ever Audionerdz podcast released. Together with myself, Parandroid, and ATFV, a producer that is UK-based, but originally from Germany. We are discussing the following topic today. Is it advisable to release your music independently, or is it better to go with a label, may it be big or small? We are talking from two different perspectives. One from a guy who's just starting out his music production journey, that is ATFV, and then myself, who is already a veteran producer, released with all major labels in his field and performed all over the world with his music. So we have those two different perspectives on the matter. I truly hope that you enjoy our time with us. If you do, there's an easy way to support this. This is, of course, the first episode, so we need your support more than ever. First of all, subscribe to the channel. Subscribing is free and it helps us out a ton. Also, hit that little bell icon so that you actually get notified about new releases from Audionerdz, because there's great stuff coming up. So get ready for that and subscribe. Thirdly, you can either leave a comment that is just simply supportive, but even better, contribute to the discussion, or if you have a question, put that down in the comment section below and we will gladly answer for you. And then we can exchange our ideas and, discuss the whole thing. Without further ado, let's get this going. I see you very, very, very soon. Actually, you see me in just about a couple of seconds in the upcoming podcast that is video and audio. Enjoy, guys and girls. Hey guys, welcome. Today we have an interesting conversation lined up. I'm here with ATFV from the UK, originally also from Germany. He's a young producer, and he will give us a little introduction about himself in just a second. Today we're going to talk about the different perspectives from somebody who is a long-term contributor in the industry versus somebody who is just like in the beginning of his journey. And we'll talk about self-distribution, releasing your music on your own versus releasing music with labels, with different labels, AAA labels, but also smaller ones. We will go into the different aspects of this. So, without further ado, I will give a little intro about myself. I'm Samuel Parandroid. I am an artist and a musician now for all my life. I became a professional in my early 20s, traveled all 5 continents, got invited to a lot of crazy places, a lot of crazy festivals, and worked with all major labels in my style. And now recently I decided to go a lot more independent, and I saw positives and negatives depending on which endeavor I was working on at the moment. And yeah, that's me. Now Klaus can give also an introduction about himself. Tell the people who you are, where you're coming from, and a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Awesome. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm originally from Germany. I discovered the rave scene in the UK around Bristol, though. And I think that's where it really kicked off for me, because the scene there was very vibrant and was full of psytrance. And I couldn't help myself but kind of get involved in the scene more and more. And one day I went to my first rave. Sorry, I got it in my throat again.
No problem. Take your time.
So basically, one day I got invited to my first rave, and I think it's literally on the day afterwards that I decided I'm going to become a producer. And that was 2 years ago now. And looking back now, I've basically spent most of my time, if I wasn't at uni, producing. And yes, it's just stayed kind of like this hobby that I needed to maintain for myself as being sustainable, almost like something that I don't over obsess over, something that kind of stays healthy and stays a hobby that I can maintain
Okay.
even through like more stressful times.
So you're not specifically living from your music as I did for the majority of my life. You are just doing it at the side. Furthermore, you just come from Stockholm, I think, in Sweden, right? You were playing there, so it's going quite good. You already have your first invitations into faraway countries, and this is how it always starts. It's like first you're regional, then you become, you know, in your continent, in our case Europe, and then maybe there is a possibility to expand that into true international bookings. Probably it is. So you just had that experience, correct?
Yes, and it was a great experience. I'll be honest with you, the Swedish rave scene is magnified. I mean, it's absolutely insane. They rave like true Vikings. I know this is a stereotype, but coming from a different country, I guess I can say that they are very energetic on the dance floor, and I've had the best time there.
Yeah.
So if you guys are watching this, you know, you are absolutely insane.
Yeah. I have a great fan from Sweden who is an artist and a crazy guy, like literally super crazy. He's the inventor of the dance nest. It's a specific tool for dancing that also gets, you know, he sells that to institutions for like disabled people and so forth. It's about experiencing yourself in a safe space while dancing. I'm not going into it because that would be too complicated, but I can show something. Although that is slightly off topic, but this is from my Swedish friend, and he drew that after I played on a festival, and this is basically what he experienced when he was listening to my music, which is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome, and I like it.
Yeah, it kind of seems like this mycelium, almost people like merging into one mushroom kind of hive mind.
Yeah.
The spaghettification of consciousness. No?
Yeah, it's I don't know, I love it because it's about, you know, it's extremely inspired. This is what the man experienced while listening to my music. I mean, that's just dope. That's just so cool. And that he came here and gave it to me is also pretty cool. So, yeah, Swedish people are very lovely. But we're going hard off topic here. Okay, awesome. So you're just in the beginning of your journey and you are really rapidly evolving. I had a quick listen to, or not so quick listen, I had a listen to your music, let's put it that way. And I thought that it was pretty good quality. Actually, very good quality for somebody who is just 2 years in. With the caveat that we live in amazing times when it comes to accessibility of knowledge, when it comes to just like, you know, if you're smart and if you are willing to put in the hours, then you can just rapidly evolve. And that's really cool. And then nowadays, that's a good segue actually back to our topic. Nowadays, we don't even are restrained in terms of releasing our music. But releasing your music, unfortunately, is not the only thing that is important in the distribution pipeline. It's as important to have somebody who cares about you. That's actually the most important thing. And how do you achieve that? So there are things like branding and advertising that heavily come into play. I feel that now very, very, very strongly also with my new endeavors where I'm, you know, breaking out into new fields of my genre. And I'm basically starting at zero despite the fact that I am a veteran in my field. And it's like that. But nowadays, the cool thing is that we are not restrained in any way. We can sell our music on tons and tons of shops online. And this is what we actually wanted to talk about today. The benefits and the advantages versus the disadvantages of this. So I will talk about one anecdote from my life as an artist. And this is getting into my dream label just a couple of years after I started. Approximately 4 years after I started to create, I was contacted by my dream label, by the biggest label in this field back then also. And the A&R or the manager the artist and repertoire manager told me that they are blown away by my EP, metaprogram language, and if I would have more stuff like this and that track, like they said, specific tracks that I liked. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? And I told the A&R that he should give me 1 year time, which is, if I look back at it, kind of a cool move. It's like, your dream label contacts you and you're not like saying, yeah, sign me right now. You're saying, okay, cool, give me 1 year time. And in this year, I wrote some insanely good music, and that led to me ultimately getting signed in the label and also getting invited on a lot of festivals through that, because that was back then a different landscape. Labels had a different kind of importance, although they still have a similar kind of, importance or position in the bigger scheme. Nevertheless, what was the effect of getting in that label? Of course, it put wind in my sails. That was great. And it pushed my name really quickly all over the world. Suddenly, I was not, a secret tip anymore, but suddenly I was in everybody's mind, and that was good. The negative aspect of what I experienced, though, was that my creativity took a nosedive, because suddenly I was thinking that I have to, even subconsciously thinking that I have to adhere to the style of the label, although the label explicitly, they took me in because I was unique and because I did things my own way and because I was constantly breaking rules. That is very, very evident in my early years. In my creative efforts, I was just like breaking rules left and right. And that was what was actually making my music so special, I believe, in hindsight, at least. Nevertheless, stuff became a little bit less creative for a while. And if you think about when I got signed, end of 2012, doing a trip in California, my first transatlantic tour, playing all over Mexico and getting the phone call from the A&R. And then it took, I think, until 2017, if I'm not mistaken, until I released an album. That was a double album and a great release that I'm still proud of. Up to the last minute detail of the CD and the cover and the text and so forth. But it took years to get over that, to transcend that subconscious feeling that I have to now make music like this label does. And this label, a good label, wants to expand its portfolio, not have infinite copies of the same, at least in my opinion. Hopefully that is. There should be some unique USP, a unique selling proposition that makes you as an artist. And getting into your favorite label can kind of a little bit truncate that a bit. And I think that's quite common. So that is one of the things that we're thinking about. Klaus and me, we came together originally really about that, because he did a little piece of content where he was announcing his next release, I believe. Was it something like that? And that it would be special because he's doing it on his own. And this is how we got together. So, did you release that track already?
So it's coming out next week on the 9th of August, actually. But I didn't release it yet. Basically, on that day, I was kind of like fed up, and very similar to you. I kind of felt like my creativity had taken a dive, because the first tracks I ever released, I released with labels. So basically, my head was always in that mindset of I have to release like these labels, I have to kind of make that catches onto the general trend and the overall direction of Psytrance, so that I can kind of maintain this momentum, that I can kind of, or let's put it differently, I was kind of hooked on this kind of feeling that, I'm going to release with a label. And I kind of like started thinking, when I made a track, in the beginning of this track, I would think like, what could a label like? And that
Yeah,
was like, in retrospect, that was horrible. That was the worst thing I could have done for my
yeah,
creativity.
yeah. It's such a common thing. It's even happening in versus tracks. Let's say you are an artist and your dream versus track or, collaborator contacts you, or it comes to the point that you somehow can produce with him, and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to make a track with this and that guy. And now you're starting to produce something, a copy of the guy that you are trying to work. It doesn't make sense. He doesn't want that because you're not going to be better than him anyway. Copies are never, like, usually not better. If they are much better, then they are not copies anymore. Then they have contributed a sufficient amount. And then it's like, okay, he took that as a baseline to create something even more better. You know what I mean? Like, it's very subjective in the end. But yes, this is what it is about. It's like the great opportunity of releasing music independently is to truly do what you want. And I feel totally the same because I did that. I had the chance to release completely, music that is in a completely different direction than what I did before. And none of the labels that I worked with would have even the remote interest on that because it was stylistically so far in a different field. It's just a different BPM. It goes more into your direction, actually. It goes more into classical psytrance. And I could release that and see how it performs. And performed on YouTube specifically very, very well, I'd say, in terms of numbers, also in terms of ratios and so forth. So I had a chance to try myself out. But then, as a juxtaposition, what I also experienced was quite underwhelming performance on Spotify so far. And Spotify normally, I don't know, for me it's like, I'm creating good music that is almost not to debate, it's pretty good shit that I put out there. And it barely, catches on to anyone. There's barely any listeners. And that was quite disappointing. It was like basically my experience in this case, for example, was YouTube gave me a better, better overall outcome because in the beginning what you want is data also, right? You want data as a beginning artist. How does that track perform? How does that track perform? And so forth. So, yeah, it's the great benefit. Let's talk about benefits of releasing with labels. Specifically, if you are a beginner, to be honest with you, your reach can just increase dramatically if you're releasing with a AAA label. What is a AAA label? It's very vague because, I'm talking about AAA labels of our culture, of the psytrance/trance culture. And, if you go into pop music, AAA label means something completely else. It means Sony and UMG.
I'm wondering if we even have AAA labels,
This is, exactly, or double A labels, doesn't matter. We have labels which definitely mean that if you are taken in there, that's a big deal, of course. For example, if you would get signed to Tip, or if you would get signed to Nano, which doesn't happen, because the label, for example, says on its website, we are not interested in signing anyone, which I find not very nice and pretty questionable. And I would never run a label like that personally, but it's their choice, right? It's their choice. I respect it. But I would never run a label like that. I would always keep it open and maybe ambiguous. Might be that nobody is reading the emails, but just for that off chance that there is a brilliant mind, a Mozart basically, and you're missing out on it as a label. I don't know. I wouldn't do it like that. But some labels don't even have applications. It can still mean a tremendous jump in popularity, especially if you're zero, okay? Nobody knows about your project. And then the difference, you're getting released by a label like Tip with all its channels or any other bigger label. There are definitely differences in labels in the psytrance culture. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say so. And also, when you mentioned that about the reach with releasing as a newcomer, I would say that's not necessarily true. I think it's more about almost like you go into the supermarket and you have like products which have the seal of approval, and you're more likely to buy these. I
Yeah,
think getting an initial seal of approval from somebody, kind of establishing you as an artist who gets approved by other artists,
yeah,
is very important in the beginning. And I think for me, that was also kind of necessary because I didn't know how to make psytrance when I started off, right? I didn't know anything. So knowing that what I'm doing is actually psytrance and that people can say, yeah, this is psytrance, the psytrance label releases it, kind of helped me classify, which is
yeah,
not always the best thing.
yeah,
Classification obviously leads to like a little bit of a narrowing of the creative
yeah.
mind.
But in the end,
But
you
it's a
need,
trade-off, isn't it?
also you need to have a ballpark. Of course, it would be, if I'm going into seeding phases, then recently, because I learned that, or I opened myself up to that, yes, I'm doing work without genres. I literally worked on metal, hip hop, mashups and shit like that in my last seeding phase. But still, ultimately, you need to decide for a ballpark. You can't just like say music. I don't know. It's like a ballpark. It doesn't have to be like super narrow. Psytrance is a huge ballpark, for example. Under Psytrance, actually, in my terminology or in my understanding, Xenonesque, full-on progressive, dark sci, forest, all of that is Psytrance. High tech, it's all Psytrance. It's all different iterations and, iterations of Psytrance ultimately. So it's a big ballpark already. And you can even narrow it a little bit more down. But we can't just make nothing at all without any classification. At some point, you can do that for a while. If you want to be super open, great, be super open. Ignore that genres exist, ignore that classifications exist. But you can't do that forever. At some point, you have to decide, okay, now I'm doing that. Like I figured out in your case, yeah, you're a little bit at a different stage at me. So for me, I already broke out of that in a different way, I feel. But it's normal. In the beginning, you need to start somewhere. And
I think so. And
yeah,
fanning out later on is always a possibility. Kind of like,
yeah,
I think it's almost like a mirrored kind of progression. At the start, when you start out producing, you should really just do whatever, do drum and bass, do classical music in Ableton, I don't know, but
yeah,
just do anything. And like coming back to creative reasons, though, in regards to labels, I think we both had another similarity between us, which kind of led us on this path of self-release, which is the book by Rick Rubin, The Creative Act.
yeah, that might be true. So the book, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, and Rick Rubin's work, specifically his spiritual work, but also his work as a producer, touched me greatly. And it didn't only touch me greatly, it also touched ATFV greatly. And I think millions, not I think, I know as an empirical fact that millions of other people got touched by the book as well, because it's such a pure, liberating piece of literature. And not sure if that played the biggest role in my case. And also, I'm not sure if I want to continue that path, for example, with my new project, Nova Spectrum. I am considering to get in touch or try to do another round of getting in touch with labels and try to get it somewhere because of capacities also, Like if you have so many different productions as I do, then at some point I can't take care of everything. It's like, and it is already such a great piece of music that it would be worth it, like there would be all kinds of things would be justified. A booking agency, a label, all of that stuff, and it would be helpful in my case. And so I got, maybe if I achieve that and I find a good label for the project, then I have the best of both worlds. I could try myself out and keep it pure in a way, follow my own artistic agenda 100%, and then ultimately also find the approval of somebody. Let's see if that is possible, because it's very unique, and the more unique, the tougher it gets to put a lid on it and sell it. But I don't care, to be honest with you. I'm quite happy with what I created, first of all. That's the most important thing. And then second comes the commercial success, which also can happen at any time, right? It can be funneled through a famous DJ or something like that, that you send a track to them, hopefully, or something, you know? Like, you need to move on your own if you're a producer nowadays. It's not like it has been. There was a different time where things just moved on their own, for me, for example, and that's not today. Today, you better have an agency, you better have a label, actually, in many cases. It's like that. So although I am a proponent of self-releasing, it would be foolish to ignore the benefits of labels. It would be foolish to just, say like, yeah, they're just gonna truncate your creativity and so forth. The benefits are also great in releasing with labels and with established, structures of distribution and so forth.
Certainly. And I guess it kind of is like a cycle, for a while we might self-release, then we may kind of reconfigure, see whether the things we've experimented with kind of strike a chord with anybody, and then kind of reconvene with previous colleagues or people we've worked with, kind of see how we all progress together. Yeah. I think for me now, like realizing that, for example, I want to implement some hard techno elements into my psytrance tracks, or that I want to experiment with something like synthwave versus psytrance, would have probably never happened if I hadn't gone down this route. But on the other hand, I would have probably gone down another route if I hadn't. So there's always more than one option. It's all about striking a balance between what you want to achieve and where you are. And it's about this kind of like point of reflection. Am I happy with the music I'm making? Does it feel like a reflection of who I am? Or is there any other influence that may, change the way I work and make me feel less satisfied with what I produce? Because ultimately it's about human expression, right? Yes, it's a business, but it's also an expression of yourself. And it's very deeply intertwined with like your soul and who you are.
Yeah.
So meddling with that in the wrong way, can be.
Yeah, but we're always influenced. On the other hand, there's like not one single musician who is not influenced. We're all influenced by a million things, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like, it's just like, yeah. I guess there's some things that can, kind of programs in your brain that are interfering with great creative output in some cases. By the way, let's plug your track. What is the name of your track that is coming out?
So it's going to be called Nautilus, and it's themed after the 1952 version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, that's a very nostalgic movie for me, which is why there's also some original quotes in there. I hope they don't copy strike me.
No.
But yeah, the thing that made me actually think about self-releasing was this track, because I had this hard techno drop in the latter part, and I thought I want to mix it up a little bit. I thought it would work quite well in the situation, like following the chronology of the movie almost. At the end, the submarine crashes and like the cinematic scene where it just ends up in the sea. And I kind of tried to recreate it in a little way. It
Nice.
didn't strike a chord with the people I showed it to. Most bigger artists recommended to me that I either remove this bass line, and also some labels suggested that they could take it on, but they would like the bass line removed. And I was thinking about it for quite some time. And I was like, but I actually like this bass line. So I'm not gonna just reconfigure everything I had built up in this track.
So in this case, I would also suggest
self-release it.
Self-release it and make another one. and release that one
Exactly.
with your labels if it's more fitting. That's the great thing, right? Like now it can be also a great plan B. It's like I have this piece, I want it to go out. I like it. That's actually enough, right? I like it. That's enough to put a piece out, and you don't have to worry about it, and you can just go on to the next piece. Me too. I just released an EP. It's called Branches of Love. It's available right now on all platforms, and it's under my new project Nova Spectrum. For anyone who wants to check that out, feel free to check it out. Branches of Love. Quite easy name, I find. And there's a lot more, of course. This is brought to you by Audionerdz. Audionerdz is a platform that aims to bring you a lot of free to access information about music production and so forth. And if you want to check that out, then it's audionerdz.net, link in the description. And you should head over there, check our merch section, and check our courses as well. We have great material there. All right, let's talk a little bit about... This podcast is brought to you by Audionerdz. Audionerdz is an independent platform that aims to deliver high-level knowledge about music production and composition and everything that is connected to that. We have a summer sale starting today, the 14th of August, and going until 30th of August. You can get products for up to 75% off. This includes samples, presets, templates, and courses. So don't wait, head over to audionerdz.net right now and get your fix. How did you release your music? What is the tools that you used? Did you self-master, or did you get professional mastering, or even, in my opinion, questionable, but maybe you used an e-mastering service or something like that? And what is the platform that you use? Let's talk a little bit about that. I think that could be also interesting and topically relevant.
Yes, especially because self-releasing takes a little bit more effort. And I think from my first music coaching that I took, they always encouraged me to self-release. They were like, what? You want to go to a label? You worked half a year on your first EP. Why wouldn't you self-release it as a statement? Anyways, that being said, the entire toolkit that I use starts with my mastering engineer. So I do professional mastering.
Maybe you want to give a shout out.
He goes by the name.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. He goes by the name of Cyber, and he really does great customer support. I'm really happy with him. This is not sponsored or anything, but he's just a legend. He's doing my masters, and I've never had an issue with him. He also offers me to give me a loud master for my mixes and a dynamic master.
Yeah, that's also what I do, by the way. That is what I do. I started that not too long time ago, but maybe around 1 or 2 years ago, that I do one that is marked with HC and another one that is marked with LC, standing for high compression or low compression. And that's basically the same thing. It's a high fidelity version, and then like there's stuff which is like, let's say the HC version is something, first of all, most likely that the HC version would go to release, because usually like they are quite compressed, and it sounds probably better on your laptop or on your phone or on your TV. And sadly, not everybody is running around with a couple of €100 headphones or a couple of €1,000 speakers. The reality is most people consume our music on rather poor end devices. So HC versions are good for that. But yes, I also do that. So you have professional mastering, you're not self-mastering. I can tell you a little story about one of my latest releases, together with the great producer Arvind from India, aka Pyrokine versus Evernoise, Diamond Eyes, and we were going through a very stringent and hardcore, I would say, and correct process of being different masters blind. And you probably, if you're happy and so forth, then go with it. I'm just giving you my what we did, and we literally, listened like I had Arvin send me the masters blind, so like that I cannot decipher which one is which, and we decided according to blind tests of different mastering studios. And this is the correct way how to decide which mastering, if you're talking proper, right? Like proper, a proper production house would do it like that. He would send out the track to, let's say, a contender series of 3 or 4 mastering studios. And if you're a mastering studio and you're not doing test masters, for example, then you're out, in my opinion, because that is extremely sketchy. So normally any mastering studio provides test masters if you, at least if you ask for them. Maybe they don't say it publicly, but if you ask them, then they should, because that's the only way of discerning the quality of a master is blind. It's really impressive how much what we think about a person will inform what we think about the music. So if I know this is coming from Storm Mastering, this is coming from whatever, this is coming from this and that artist that masters, this is coming from Wild Things, all of those things will basically color my perception if I know about them. I cannot know about them. You should not know about who is the mastering engineer and then listen to it. And you need somebody else to basically do that. That's a pretty hardcore process, but it's worth it, because this is how you come out with the best product, ultimately, I believe. I loved it. I loved that little process that we went through. And I remember how Arvin was like a little bit shy even to ask for the test master. But as I said, in my opinion, if you're getting asked as an engineer for a test master and you're declining it, you have something to hide or something, I don't know. Then, I don't know, it's not normal practice. So you can always do that. You can always ask for test masters. Okay,
That
great.
being said, if you know your engineer, it's cool. I mean, there's no. For me personally, I'm happy with who I work
Sure.
with.
Okay, fair enough. But like, if it's, it's different approaches, I'd say. I would be ice cold.
Yeah.
I don't care if I know you or not. I only care about who's doing the best job. In this case, I would be super ice cold. It's merit or go home. In this case, for me.
I mean, I'm not talking about like I know them personally. I'm talking about I know their masters, if that makes sense.
And you have a personal contact with them, and they are like consultants of yours, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, which is big benefit. And if you have a good connection to your mastering engineer, that can be so different, right? Like the connections, like you probably don't have the experience, but I do. Mastering engineers are humans, and humans are just completely different in their style of communication. And you can learn a lot from your mastering engineer, probably. And hopefully he cares. This is the most important thing. Is what I'm always worried the most about is, does the mastering engineer truly care? Because he might not. You might go to a fantastic, very popular mastering studio, and you have that ultimate love. But for him, or for that mastering studio, you might be something rather not in their field, for example. Let's say you go to one of the best in the world. You go to Sterling. Sterling is not interested in mastering your boom boom. They're specialized in different stuff. So they would take your order, and they would give it, first of all, it would be the lottery. It would be, you don't have that engineer working on your music in this case. Sterling would decide, and they would most likely give it to somebody at the beginning, not the greatest engineer of all time. And this is my main concern when I'm looking for mastering engineers, is how much do they care? It's not easy to discern, but how much do they care? And that normally should also be reflected in the quality of the master. Okay,
Yeah,
so
certainly. Talking about the process, though, there's obviously more involved in self-releasing.
yeah,
And I guess the
Distribution.
first thing that comes to it, distribution, yes, and also marketing. How do you actually get in front of people? You don't have anybody else's platform to sustain or kind of get the word out. So what do you do? Well, for me personally, first of all, obviously it starts with creating a visual representation of the piece, which I shamelessly do in Midjourney. I don't mind because I'm having fun creating like some kind of artwork or cover.
Yeah, but what is the process there? It's like you're not a trained visual artist. So I am a trained visual artist. I also used AI, but always heavily modified it. It was like, it's like, you know, from the original output to what I did with it, there was a long process. Was it similar for you, or was it pretty like straightforward?
It's quite a long process actually, and I would hold back with the judgments because for 18 years of my life I was actually doing visual arts before I did
Okay.
music.
Sorry, I didn't know that. Or I forgot that. You maybe told me. So yeah, okay. So you are a visual artist in that case.
Yes, actually was before I was a musician. So
Just
in
like
that
me.
strange
Yeah.
way,
Interesting.
yeah, I guess in that strange way, yeah, it takes a couple of hours to get the AI to where you want it to be, because you don't just want a cool picture, you want a picture that works with the music. So there's lots involved in kind of getting the AI picture to where you want it. Once you're there, though, there's the next step, which is distribution. Who do you let the track distribute? And to me, that's simply DistroKid and Bandcamp in this case as well.
Yeah.
Because both are relatively easy to set up and they're also relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Interesting. So we can do a little versus, because I'm not using DistroKid, I'm using the direct competitor. There's three big ones, actually. I'm using TuneCore. ATFV is using DistroKid, which is very popular. The funny thing, what I found out after extensive calculation, seriously extensive calculations, it doesn't matter. It's same. It's like it's like going to Rewe or Edeka in Germany. It's like those different supermarkets. They also did the calculation, and it doesn't matter. You can go to any of them. It's like plus minus, it comes out equally. So the services might be slightly different. What was your experience with the DistroKid support?
I thankfully did not have to get in touch with any support hotline. I think generally support hotlines in the music industry, looking at Spotify, looking at SoundCloud.
Did you had contact with them?
I've had contact with SoundCloud in the past, and
Me too.
Usually,
Me too, because
you basically get.
Yeah, my SoundCloud was hacked by Mossad hackers, by Israeli hackers, once, and everything was deleted because I pissed off an Israeli artist. That's not a joke, actually. It's a true story. And he hacked my SoundCloud as a thank you, and I had to get it back from SoundCloud, of course, like, you know. And fortunately, they did it. I have this weird thing, which will sound quite unbelievable, but SoundCloud. Okay. I have like Artist Pro services without ever having paid a single dime to SoundCloud. I have infinite uploads and like many other things that don't make sense. And I don't know why that is. I also have that check mark thing and so forth. I don't know how it came to that, but it is like that. I don't have Pro. And I had arguments with people who said, like, it's not possible, but it is like that. I can upload as if I would have Pro. Anyway, okay, so you didn't had support contact with DistroKid. Overall, what I can say, TuneCore is very professional. I think formerly it was Arabesque, if I'm not mistaken. They're extremely tight with their letting stuff go out. So they're very anal about copyright infringement and so forth. But that's a good thing. It's ultimately a good thing, because that future-proofs your music in a way. And who knows how big you will blow up in the future and how relevant that will become. And so it doesn't really matter, I guess. Monetarily, I did, as I said, extensive calculations. And yes, you know, some services are a bit cheaper on DistroKid versus some others are a bit cheaper on TuneCore, but plus minus it equals out at the same. You're paying around, for a proper distribution, I think around like €100 annually if you're like having all the options. Also, do you release on Beatport? That's an important question.
Well, my first releases were on Beatport. However, the next one is not going to be on Beatport simply for the reason that I feel like Beatport is a lot more difficult to customize, and kind of like, if you would like to retract a track, I found out it's quite difficult. If you want to change your profile picture, you need to contact them personally. And overall, I kind of want to have that freedom. Labels will obviously put it on Beatport immediately, and but I'm gonna stick with DistroKid for my solo releases. It's just, I don't know.
DistroKid offers the option of including Beatport. It's just quite expensive. That's the only thing.
I meant Bandcamp. Sorry, I mixed those two up.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna stick with Bandcamp for this.
Yeah. I think Beatport for your style is quite an important platform. Beatport, not Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite important because it's specialized. And
no, it is.
Yeah, and it sucks. I don't have my music on Beatport, but I would like to have my music on Beatport. But it's a per artist fee in the distribution. That means that if you have several projects like I do, then that can become quite expensive. It's $7.99 in TuneCore per month per artist. So let's say you have 3 artist names. That's 24 a month and 12. It's a lot of money just for Beatport. But they take so much money because they have a very dedicated customer base. There's just tons of people who are used to Beatport and who for some or reason love Beatport as their main distribution. And it's that, you know, they have their business going and they sell it, and it's like that. Shit costs money.
I get most of my stuff from Beatport, I'm going to be honest with you.
You see?
So I do
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, yeah. It seems. And why do you get most of your stuff from Beatport?
Why? Because I wouldn't know where else to get it. I'll be honest with you as well.
Yeah. So it's just like a very high quality selection of proper music.
Yeah, but also all the labels releases that I follow, you know, all the tracks I really want to get.
Yeah, because for them it's
the place
like,
they're gonna be is Beatport.
Yeah, it's the major. Let's say Electric Universe or something, if he has a new release, the metric that they use is Beatport and Beatport charts, because first of all, they have a chance to be in the trance charts there, which is impossible in Spotify, as far as I can tell. Does Spotify even have curated psytrance lists? Probably not. Maybe. But
I mean, does, I believe, one of them...
Yeah.
Is doing very well, but it doesn't get updated, you know.
But there are different. There are the Spotify curated playlists, and then there are just playlists. I'm talking about officially Spotify curated playlists. I see Spotify having not only Spotify, Beatport theoretically the same, but Spotify as the biggest player in the game, I feel has an obligation, and I don't understand why nobody's doing something to keep the floodgates of AI garbage closed. In my opinion, not in terms of visual art necessarily, although I have a different standard than you when it comes to that. I don't take vanilla outputs, never. They always go through an iterative process in Photoshop, for me. Anyway, that's not the point, but in my opinion, they have an obligation in kind of, you know, there should be a little check mark on your release where you have to disclose this music was produced without a major influence of AI. I don't know, like the wording is pretty bad, but you know what I mean. Like it cannot be majority AI produced music, and there's tons of that now. Especially like those more popular genres. but just will take a little bit more time, and then you can do that for subgenres and so forth, like trance and psytrance as well, but country music, pop music, and so forth. It's getting flooded with AI garbage, and I find that very questionable. What do you think about that? Do you think there should be any safeguards on those platforms?